What can you deal with as an agent? What can you buy, sell, and manage, in other words? That is what we're going to be discussing in this particular presentation, which is actually part two of a presentation that began with the topic, who can you work for? So there are two key things when it comes to acting as an agent under the Property and Stock Agents Act. One is, who can I represent or who can I work for? And the other one is, what type of property or items can I deal with? So just a really quick recap. Last time we were presenting on this topic, we covered the point that in very basic terms, as an agent, you are working for a principal. That principal is the person or entity for whom you owe a fiduciary duty, and in return that entity will pay you fees and expenses as appropriate. So principal, agent, fiduciary duties and contractual duties reflected in the agency agreement. So that's our basic starting point. And then in the prior presentation, we spoke about your principal as an agent could be a vendor, you're selling their property. It could be a landlord where you're managing their property. It could be your principal is a buyer. It could be that your principal is a tenant. And we talked about the likely occurrence and how frequently you might be working for buyers and tenants and landlords and vendors and so forth. And we also mentioned that another type of principal that will come up in the world of agency under the Property and Stock Agents Act is that of a strata manager representing an owner's corporation if it's strata property, or an association if it's community title property. In other words, commonly used property is the realm of the strata manager. And then what we did was we made sure that everyone understood that in terms of real estate and stock and station, the functions are fairly common. In other words, as a real estate agent or as a stock and station agent, you can buy, sell and manage property. As a strata manager, as a standalone license, you can obviously manage community property or strata common property. So that was the last presentation, very quick recap on its own. Now, this presentation, we're going to focus on what can you deal with? What items can each of those agents deal with? So let's start with real estate agents and stock and station agents. Although there's a commonality in terms of real estate and stock and station in terms of who can they represent, generally speaking, those two license categories would represent sellers and owners of property and buyers and tenants, etc. When it comes to what can they deal with, the real estate agent's license is a very significant and very broad license. It allows a licensed entity, being somebody with a class 1, an entity or some person with a class 1 or a class 2, or an assistant agent under the correct supervision, to deal in, and I use the word deal, meaning buy, sell, manage, and advocate, right? To deal in residential property, commercial property, industrial property, retail property, and rural property up to 20 hectares. So it is by far the most broad-based license category. Then underneath those items or categories I just mentioned, I've added business broking and on-site residential property manager. The reason I put that in a separate box, as it were, is because it's only the agents under the new licensing training package that will be entitled to do those functions or work in that particular area, unless, of course, the agent was licensed in the prior regime, in which case they will or won't have a limitation. So if you were an agent in the prior regime and you were in fact a licensed business broker or a on-site residential property manager, that would have carried through. If you weren't, then you're going to be limited to buy and sell and manage for residential, commercial, industrial, retail and rural up to 20 hectares. All right. Now let's deal with stock and station agents. What can they deal with? Okay. Well, a stock and station agent can deal with rural property above 20 hectares, as well as livestock, animals, cattle, sheep, bloodstock, and etc. Agricultural livestock. So real estate agents, basically we can say any type of property, any type of real estate, up to 20 hectares, including up to 20 hectares of rural, definitely. And if you are an agent trained under the new training package, which will include dealing with businesses, as well as being able to involve yourself in on-site residential property management. If you are a licensed agent from a prior regime, then you must look to your limitations that's been noted on your details page at the Office of Fair Trading database. Stock and station agents, just to confirm, rural property above 20 hectares, as well as livestock animals, agricultural animals. Now, the Strata Manager function, what can I deal with as a Strata Manager? Well, I can deal with common property, and that common property has references to the strata title system, as well as the community title system. So in the community title world, that will be it's called association property. In the strata title regime, it'll be called common property. In other words, the items of the structured title arrangement that are commonly owned is the area that a strata manager is entitled to involve himself in. And finally, I've also mentioned here, or noted, the auctioneer, the role of the auctioneer. Now, the auctioneer role is something that most people describe as sitting on top of your license. So if you are a Class 1 or Class 2 real estate agent and you wanted to act as an auctioneer or hold auctioneering accreditation credentials, that is something you do as an additional course, which is attached to your license. So if you were a residential real estate, if you were an agent, a real estate agent with an auctioneering accreditation, you could then auction residential property, commercial, industrial, retail, and rural property below 20 hectares. If you were a stock and station agent holding an auctioneering accreditation, you could therefore auction property above 20 hectares as well as livestock. So I'm hoping that diagram, although it looks fairly busy, I've tried my best to separate the functions broadly, as well as the license categories that we have at the moment. Bearing in mind that prior to the regime change on the 23rd of the 3rd this year, 2020, there were in fact 6 license categories. We only now have 3. We only have real estate, stock and station, and strata managing. The auctioneering is not a license, it's an accreditation attached to a license. And based on those 3 license categories, we are then able to deal with all aspects of items or property, real estate being the most comprehensive and broad, stock and station including livestock, and strata managers, common property and association property. And just finally, to reiterate one more time, is that business broking, although it was a separate license in the old regime, it has been bundled back into real estate along with the on-site residential property manager license, which was also a separate license in the old regime. They now form part of the real estate function, although keep in mind that it only applies to agents trained under the new package. If you're an agent that holds a license under the old regime, you need to look at the limitations of your license based on your details in the Office of Fair Trading database. My name is Craig Swan. I hope that has been useful information for you. I always appreciate and encourage you to give me a call or contact me and let me know your thoughts. In particular, are there other topics that you would like information on? You can reach me at Instagram at Craig_Leverage Group, or you can reach me through email, Craig Swan, that's SWAN, at leveragegroup.com.au. I wish you all the very best for your endeavors in the world of agency, which, as you can see, is a big, wonderful world. And make sure it's always happy hunting.